morning, everyone. I know, at least here in Texas, in the southern part of Texas, it's cold and dreary and awful out. But happy Thanksgiving week, everybody. And I think it's Heritage Day afterwards. One of those. Indigenous People Heritage Day is on Friday also. I try to keep up. I probably am wrong. Please don't come for me. I'm trying. I'm trying really hard, you guys. But you guys listening to Author Talk with me, Amy Fern Russell, and our lovely author guest today is Kev Harrison. So you guys, how was everybody's weekend? Mine was crazy because it was raining. I was sick. Hey, Greg, Mr. Kelso. I was sick, so I actually last week, if you guys can't tell, I did not have my energy last week. I was battling getting over the flu, and then it turned into a bacterial infection in my airways, and so I'm highly medicated, and we're doing so much better, okay? Because we're over here on antibiotics, steroids, nebulizer, cough syrup, everything. Hey, James Hill. So it's a fabulous day in the neck woods of Amy because I'm feeling a lot better. I'm no longer at 80%. We're at 100%. But you guys, a week from this Thursday, the 12 Days of Page Turners starts because we're hitting December 1st. So you know that I'm gearing up for that 100%. But what all did you guys do this weekend? Russell, you just popped on. I didn't hear much from you. What did you do this weekend?
So we drove from Atlanta, Georgia to Houston, Texas this weekend. And the one thing that struck me is when you're driving through Mississippi and Louisiana, I've never seen so many hiked up pickup trucks, 4-wheel drive with giant tires, spitting mud.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get run over 4 or 5 times. These are the biggest things. And it was almost a stereotype.
Yeah.
I actually would love to drive one, but it's almost a stereotype. Georgia didn't see anything. Alabama, the roads are so great driving through Alabama, didn't see anything. Mississippi and Louisiana, these trucks were everywhere.
Yeah.
I would love to have one, by the way.
But they are great for mudding and, not great for short people because we got to get a run and start to get up in there or climb the tires. It's kind of one of those things. But they would be so much fun for mudding and everything, especially with the amount of misty rain that we have currently. But I could see you in one, Russell. I could see it like a monster truck for you. It'd be kind of cool. I'd like it.
Anyway, that was the biggest thing of my weekend. I'm in Houston, freezing to death. I think I brought this weather from Atlanta with me.
Well, can you send it back? Okay.
I will.
Yes. Oh, wow. Mr. James Hill went to the Miami Book Fair and he sold out of his Emerald Lady. Congratulations, Mr. Hill. That's awesome. I love it. And I love all of your photos. So, Kev Harrison, what did you do this weekend?
This weekend, what did I do? On Saturday was pretty chilled because I've also been getting over COVID. I had it for the first time about 3 weeks ago. It was rubbish. Don't recommend it at all. And then Sunday, one of my friends, his girlfriend is a Brazilian singer. And so we went to see her sing, and there was a beer festival on. So I just tried a bunch of beers and listened to this Brazilian lady singing. So yeah, all round, not bad at all.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good way to get well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. That's
Go to
awesome.
a beer fest.
I love that. I had COVID once, but the one that I had just felt like really bad allergies. It wasn't full blown, but the flu that I had was awful. I would have rather walked in front of a bus. It was awful. Yeah. Straight up awful. Yes. Fern, what about you? What did you do this weekend?
I watched the opening of World Cup soccer, of course. I mean, that was the highlight of my weekend, and it's what I'm going to be doing pretty much for, the next 28 days is just, everybody here knows I'm not a sports fan. I don't watch sports. I don't follow sports. I don't care about sports, but every 4 years, World Cup soccer happens. And that's when Fern all of a sudden is like the sports fanatic, getting up at 4 a.m. to watch games. I mean, yes. And I'm fully awake, which is really bizarre. If I have to get up to go to work, I have to seriously caffeinate to make it. But like World Cup soccer, 4 a.m. Yes, I'm there, baby. I'm fully on. It's like not even funny. But England played a few minutes ago, and they won. They won their match like mega.
They did me proud. They really did.
They really did. Oh my God. And they're a beautiful team. Beautiful team. And coordinated, the dance of the ball going here and there, beautiful control. I just love that. I mean, it's fantastic. Great football. Real
Kev,
football.
where are you from?
Well, I'm from England,
Yeah.
but I live in Portugal. So I'm very complicated.
That is not complicated. That is very natural for an Englishman to live in Portugal, as we all know. And the reason I ask is because what Fern was saying, I got to tell you, since she brought up the World Cup, I got to tell you, I hate what English soccer or football, as you would put it. I much prefer Brazilian style.
Okay, yeah, I can take that. I can accept.
Oh,
that
you're going to
opinion.
take that? I thought I was going to start a fight, Amy. Usually
No.
they won't put up with that kind of comment.
Him and Fern, before we got on, they were full on talking about it, and I'm over here like I didn't even. Okay, you guys, we're gonna have a dumb Amy moment. Okay, we should just classify a segment of a dumb Amy. I know, just one today. Okay, but I was not aware of, or maybe I'm just not caffeinated enough. I was totally unaware that the U.S. had a soccer team. I'm not even gonna lie. Like in my life, it's football and baseball, right? Like that's my life, and so I wasn't aware of it. So that's the dumb Amy segment of the show, I guess, is how we're gonna label that for sure. But no, I mean they were having a full blown World Cup conversation, and I was like, I don't know about you.
Well, yeah, Canada is in too. I don't know how often Canada has been. I don't think they make it to the World Cup very often.
I think only like 2 or 3 times in the past in total.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they brought. But yes, I mean, England had a beautiful team this time. They have a beautiful team. But I'm with you, Russell, because Brazilian football, there's something about the Latin football versus the more European.
It's more aggressive, I think. But I'm just trying to start a fight with Kevin. He's apparently on his good interview, author behavior. I hate that behavior. I got to try to get to him.
Okay, I didn't give you a disclaimer, Kev. That is my fault. Okay, Mr. Russell wasn't on, but feel free to jump in and banter with Russell, because if not, he will target you. Like it's just
that's fine.
And he does it with us too. It's his way of showing endearment and love. It's what we've classified it as. So let's just feel free to jump in. None of us are sensitive or easily offended by any means at all. That's why we are so great at being friends, and we've done this for 7 years now coming up. But Mr. Russell, before you chime in on your podcast, let me tell everyone where they can find us, and then you can tell everybody the good news. So you guys, if you haven't already saved us on your podcast that you listen to on all the channels, we are on all of them: Spotify, Stitcher, Good Pods, Amazon, Apple, Google Play, everywhere that you can listen to a podcast, you can listen to us. If you want to watch me talk with my hands and be super animated and all of us make fun of each other, make sure you go over to our Facebook group and join it. We will accept you to join it and interact. We love talking and interacting with you guys, getting your guys' feedback. And you can go and follow or befriend all of us on social media. We are all open books, so you're more than welcome. But Russell, tell them about our good news.
Well, our good news was that we are top 10 independent book podcast in America, and we're a little shocked. It's just 3 friends and a new author that's like sitting around having coffee, talking to Kev today, and I can't get him upset because he's way too well behaved apparently. But we thank people that are listening to us on our podcast. And they can, if they want to know more about us or see some of our old shows, they can join our Facebook page and see it there. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have a YouTube channel, you guys, but exciting things are happening for us. coming in January, which we will talk about in December, what all is happening for Author Talk and everything moving forward. It's going to be a good thing. I mentioned it earlier. I will mention it again before we dive into our author interview. The 12 Days of Page Turners, you guys, is 1 week from this Thursday. New authors every night, 5 to 6 authors every night for 11 days. And on the 12th day, it is a free-for-all. We have over 60 authors this year. So, and they're all doing a holiday promotion or giveaway of their books. So make sure you turn in. It's all genres every night, different authors, never the same author until on the 12th. And whoever wants to come participate, that is your last day to get their holiday promotion, because we all on Author Talk are firm believers that the best gift you can give someone this holiday season is a book and a new read, and take them out of reality and just let them escape for a little bit. And we are huge advocates for that. But with all of that being said, talking about books, which makes all of us happy, Fern Brady, take it away.
All right. Well, Kev, I have questions because I was surfing your website and I was captivated by the idea of folkloric horror. Okay. And so I want to know, like, first of all, I want you to give us like what is it, right? The definition of folkloric horror. How do you define it? And what drew you to writing in that particular genre?
This is a really interesting question. So, obviously, folklore is kind of like the old stories that exist in whatever place where you are around the world, and places where you visit as well. And I find that a lot of these stories are quite horrific in their contents, because a lot of those stories are kind of made up as like lessons or warnings for kids, to, don't tell lies about wolf attacks because you'll get, eaten by a real wolf one day, classic kind of example of a folklore story that kind of has a horrific end to it. And so I've been quite lucky to travel to quite a lot of different places and live in quite a lot of different places in my life. Like I was quite transient in the UK when I was growing up. And then about age 30, I moved to Turkey, lived there for a while, then lived in Poland for 3 years. Now I've been living in Portugal for 8 years. So I've seen quite a lot of the world. And one thing that always really lights me up when I'm in those places is like finding out about the stories, like, what are the monsters in their culture? Like, what are the things that scare little kids at night? That kind of thing. I just find that stuff really fascinating. So that's where it all kind of comes from. And yeah, when I started writing fiction, it just felt like the most natural way to go. So yeah, my first novella was based on Polish folklore, a character of Baba Yaga, and it's just gone on from there, really.
Brothers Grimm, right? I mean, can y'all hear me? It's from the other mic. Okay. The Brothers Grimm fairy tales. They're the original one, the Disney version. Right? They're always, like you said, a little horrific and stuff. So tell me a little bit about how that influenced your books. Like, how does that show up in your book?
Yeah, I mean, I completely get what you're saying. Like the whole kind of Disneyification of folk tales is quite prevalent these days. But yeah, there is kind of this sense, like you say, from things like the Brothers Grimm, of telling these stories in a more raw kind of way, with less sanitized, less sort of child friendly. And so when I'm writing, I mean, a lot of what I do read some other folkloric horror stuff, but I also read quite widely within horror, dark fantasy, sci-fi kind of genres as well, other fantasy as well, mostly genre stuff. And so a lot of my influences from writing, from reading, are in fact, more sort of full-blooded horror, if you like. So while I'm writing stuff which kind of has that childlike fairy tale kind of backdrop to it, I still want it to resonate with adult authors, and I still want it to, if not scare people, then certainly give people a sense of dread and discomfort.
All right, I'm just gonna test. Can everybody hear me? Yes.
Yeah, much better. You're good. Much better.
Yeah, I don't know what the tech issues are today. So, but okay, so one of the things that really captivated me on your website is you have this picture of a little fairy. And you were talking about how that picture inspired one of your stories. And I think that's fascinating because, we don't often have authors who are inspired by art necessarily. So I'd love to hear about, like, how do you find the art that inspires you? And what about this particular one, kind of caught your attention and your imagination for your story?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, there's a community on Twitter that I kind of dip into quite often, which is Folklore Thursday. And obviously being folklore kind of fanatic, for me, that's like a really exciting hashtag that I see pretty much every week, various entries. And one that pops up was by a French person. And they were talking about this fairy. And we all think of fairies like Tinker Bell from Peter Pan and this kind of thing. Fairies are all lovely and sweet and nice, but no, in kind of historic stories, we see fairies as like really monsters in a very truest sense. And so this particular fairy lives in a place in France. In theory, probably not really, we hope. And she actually kind of harnesses the power of the tides during storms. This is the one. Yes, thank you. And she harnesses the power of the tides during storms, and she basically only allows the storm to end when she's kind of sated herself with like souls, basically. So she like eats souls to sustain herself. And then only when she's had enough does she kind of let the wind die down and the storm die down, and anyone who's still alive to kind of escape with their lives. And I just thought, what a crazy story. And this picture was attached, and this is from an old folklore book. I think it's like 19th century or something, from that region. And when I saw it, I was just like, oh my God, yeah, this is happening. So that's actually the book I'm writing right now. And actually in the summer this year, at the late summer in September, I actually managed to go to the place in France where this fairy supposedly lives. And there's like a big tunnel with like stones that are like thousands of years old, stacked on top of each other. There's all kinds of stuff around the town, like based around fairies, because these people still totally buy into this idea that there are these fairies living in their forest. It's really
Where
crazy.
is this? Where is this down in France? Where is this in France?
There's a city called Saint-Malo, which is like on the coast, and there's another city just inland called Rennes, and it's kind of between those two. So it's like a small kind of, it's in the province called Brittany. And yeah, so I'm writing this book at the moment, and I'm having a ball writing it, truly.
Yeah, and that kind of brings up the whole thing for authors. We do a lot of research, and sometimes the research can get real fun because we get to go places. And I mean, you were talking a little bit about how you had an opportunity in your life just to live in different places and how that has influenced your writing. Do you find yourself doing a lot of research for these stories? How much research would you say that you're doing into these and to draw from?
I'm sure you guys, with your experience, probably know that it's not even just about the stories, is it? It's kind of like, what do people eat in this area? What names are common in this area? And so you're kind of, I find that whenever I've got my manuscript open and I'm writing, I'm constantly kind of dipping into a browser window here, or checking, what is the most common term used for whatever in that area, to try and make the speech authentic and that kind of thing. So I think research is kind of a constant. It is fun. I like you say, it is actually like a really fun and interesting part of it, but it does kind of involve, quite a lot of work during that process, both in the beginning when you're trying to figure out what to do, but also during the writing as well.
I love it. Do you find yourself going down rabbit holes? Because like I find myself, when I research, I can just accidentally spend hours going in, a different crazy idea.
I definitely find that, and I find that occasionally those rabbit holes are kind of useful because they have a very specific entity for the devil in that region, which I found by going down sort of like a 2-hour sort of rabbit hole of like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, what's that? And then suddenly it's like, oh God, it's 5 p.m. and I've written 8 words today. So this is not good, but at least I did come out with something which eventually will become another plot point. So that was helpful.
I love that. So as just in general, I love to know, what was the first moment that you said, I want to be a writer? What drew you to being a writer? Because to me, that's always such a cool thing to know about all the authors that we interview, is like how our paths in many ways can be similar, but at the same time, they're unique to each individual. What made you say, you know what, I'm a writer. I want to write a book, and, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, I think I'd always kind of written, and I'd always written fiction in particular. I'd done some blogging as well previously, like to do with traveling, which I enjoyed a lot. But when I really knew that this was something that I really wanted to do, I basically I had a breakup with a partner, a long-term partner, and I'd been in Portugal for about 3 months at the time. And here, I don't know if you know, but in the winter, it's like the only time of the year when it's cold. Basically, the rest of the year is like really warm, spring, summer, autumn, really warm, really lovely, sunshine all the time. Then you get these like 6 weeks of winter when it's just like raining all the time. It's freezing cold in the house because the houses are not made very well. So I was sitting there in my house like Christmas alone, and just like going, oh geez, this really sucks. And then and there was I saw a competition for a youth horror writing competition, and I was at the very end of what they considered youth, but I was like, okay, fine, let's go for it. So I wrote a horror story, which is also based around some local folklore from Lisbon, actually, to do with street art. And I sent it to one of my friends who's an editor and is the owner of This Is Horror, and said to him, be blunt, don't sugarcoat it. Tell me if this is any good or if it's just a load of garbage. And he read it and he said, yeah, I think there's some really promising stuff here. And he gave me a couple of pointers, and I submitted the story, and I ended up winning the second prize. Hurrah! And so that got published. And I don't know about you guys in your experience, but this thing of like the story getting published made me go, oh, this is a good feeling. I would quite like to have this again. And then it kind of snowballed from there. And I started writing a lot of short stories, actually. Before I wrote any books, I wrote about 50 or 60 short stories, about 20 of which got accepted for publication. And the others, obviously, just went in a drawer somewhere. But yeah, that's kind of how I came to it.
Did you find it difficult to go from being a short story writer to writing a novel length volume? Was that a bit of a transition? How did you find that?
My goodness, yes. Because you get so used to, that kind of neat, like sort of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 kind of word, sort of like establishing your idea and then finding your way to a conclusion that's satisfying. And I think it's a real skill in itself. But then I wanted to write a short story, funnily enough, about this Baba Yaga myth that I'd read about when I was in Poland. And this story just snowballed and ended up being a novella of about 33,000 words. And so I managed to sell it, which was great. And a publishing house called Lichen Valley Press put it out. And so that was really good. But the first novel I've written, actually, I just finished at the beginning of this year, and I've just sold it to Bridges Gate Press, and they're going to put it out not next year, but 2024, spring 2024, and that's called Shadow of the Hidden, and that's set in the Middle East, which I'm really excited about because it's got jinn and all kinds of fun stuff like that in it.
That is awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I know that you have a new book, right? The title is Below, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it. What is it about? And, what inspired you for that story?
Yeah. So Below basically is actually set in the USA, even though the cast is primarily British. So basically there's a guy called Nick who's the protagonist, and he his grandfather was a miner at the very, very back end of the gold rush in the 1950s. And he went to the USA for a big opportunity from Wales to, like back end of the gold rush, to make just a bit of cash basically and bring it back to his family. And when he'd been there for a short time, there was a cave in and he kind of was the hero. He kind of helped to keep the mine entrance up open while some other miners escaped, but ultimately was buried alive. And because this guy, Nick's grandmother, was then sort of bringing up her family as a single mother at a time when it was not really respected to do that kind of thing, he wanted to kind of like renovate his grandfather's legacy, as it were. And he gets this opportunity to do so by a TV company, like an adventure TV travel kind of company, saying, we'll give you the money, we'll front up the cash for you to do this documentary, and then we'll build a museum on the site to explain what happened. When he gets there, things are not so straightforward, because it seems like there is something in the mine.
I love the artwork. I love the hand with the claws. Oh, that just, yes, it brings to mind all the horrible monsters that could possibly come and claw you in the middle of the night when you stick your foot out of the covers. That's kind of, that feeling. That's what when I saw your cover for the first time and that claw, that's what I thought about. Like, in the middle of the night, you have your foot out and you're afraid something's going to grab it. Yeah,
absolutely.
It was great. It was great.
The cover artist is a guy called Keelan Patrick Burke, and he does quite a lot of art that's all terrific. But when he showed me this, I actually got sent an email by the publisher saying, "Is this okay?" And I was like, "Is that a joke?" Like, okay, it's not an adjective I would use for this. Like, I need to use something much, much more superlative than okay. Yeah, it's wonderful, wonderful cover. I think it sells the book by itself, to be honest.
And I have to tell you, I mean, that is something that's really cool about your publisher, because a lot of times publishers don't really care whether or not the author actually likes their cover. Oftentimes the publishers are just like, okay, this is going to be your cover, and if you like it, that's awesome, and if you don't, well, too bad, because that's what we're going with. So it's really cool that you have a publisher that actually welcomes thoughts on your cover art. How did you feel with your publishing process? I mean, I know you were looking for a publisher for some time, and a lot of authors that may be listening to us may be searching for publishers. How was that journey for you? What were some of the challenges to being able to find a good publisher that you felt good with? Share a little bit of your journey to publishing.
Yeah, sure. So the first publisher that I was with, Lichen Valley Press, who put out The Balance, they've been terrific. One of the real advantages they have is that one of the co-owner of the press, or the owner of the press, her husband is also a professional audiobook narrator. So they have like an in-house studio for doing audiobooks, which is terrific, because it means you can reach that other audience that perhaps you can't just through print or ebooks alone. So that's really, really good. With Brigid's Gate, like the people that brought out Below and that are bringing out my novel in 2024, like you were saying about cover art, and I agree, like a lot of the time it's kind of like, here's the cover, deal. Whereas actually, even in their contracts, they have a clause which says, to whatever extent possible, we'll work with the author to get the kind of cover art that they're looking for. So, I mean, this kind of attention to detail and like sort of collaboration in the process, it's the sort of thing that makes me feel very comfortable working with them. And that's been kind of indicative of the whole process. They've been very supportive, very open to suggestions and ideas, and yeah, just good people to work with generally, to be honest. Yeah, so very lucky on that count.
And see, that's really cool. I mean, I think that that's one of the harder parts of being a writer. You were talking about earlier, the feeling that you get of vindication, or, kind of a blessing, like, yes, we can do this. You are a writer because you got, you get published. But a lot of times authors don't, get that. So sometimes you have to pull that out of yourself. We talk a lot about imposter syndromes. Do you feel like you ever suffer from that? Like, do you ever have those moments of like self-doubt of like, what am I doing? Is this, do I really think this is going to work? Do you ever suffer with that? And what do you do to help yourself keep going? Because I know and sometimes it's hard for writers to believe in themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that imposter syndrome is just a part of life, like when you're a creator. It's very interesting, actually. I saw recently Josh Malerman, who wrote Bird Box and lots of other, massive selling books, saying online, that still suffer with imposter syndrome every single time I write a book. And that kind of thing makes me feel a lot better in a twisted way, because it's like, well, if he's still feeling it, then it's okay for me to still feel it, I think the best way to get through it is just to try and develop a thick skin. I mean, it isn't easy, because I definitely have those times where I question, oh God, am I sure that this is going to work out? Am I sure that, this is worth all the energy that you put into it? Especially being relatively early in my writing career, there's a lot more no's than there are yeses, a lot more lumps in the road than there are smooth patches. But yeah, I think you just got to roll with the punches and just keep believing that, you're going to find your audience somewhere, I think.
And I think that's so true, because many times we feel like when we get rejected or someone doesn't like our work, we take it very deeply. And it's important to remember it is art. It is art. And so it's not going to necessarily appeal to everybody. Even all horror lovers may not particularly, connect to this one, but you have your audience, and the tale will find its connection. What has been some of the challenges that you find as you are beginning to publish your books? You've got your publisher. What are some of your challenges as an author to connect to those audiences, to find those places where your readership is, and connect to them?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And I feel this quite a lot being in a non-English language speaking country, like living in Portugal, because I think so quite often I see some of my friends and peers as writers going to conferences and this kind of thing, and that's infinitely more limited here to have the face-to-face connection. So I think it makes things like social media and opportunities like this, thank you guys, thank you, all the more valuable for someone like me, because I am kind of physically dislocated from that community. But yeah, I mean, I've got I've got quite a strong following on Twitter, and I find also that one of the best ways to kind of find an audience for your own work is to lift up the work of others that you believe in. And I try to be really honest with it. If I like something, I'll say I like it. If I don't like it, I won't say I like it, because it's just disingenuous, and it kind of, people get upset by it, I think, understandably. But yeah, so I try to, the time I spend on social media, I probably spend more of my time pushing the work of others that I've enjoyed, that are kind of in my field, more than pushing my own work. And I think that also kind of leads people to have confidence, I guess, in your taste, and maybe take a chance on what you're putting out there as well.
Yeah. See, I love that. So I haven't written a book, Kev. I'm the only one on this call that hasn't written a book. Okay. I just work
yet, Amy.
Everybody says that. I just work with authors. I live vicariously through you, right? I do the more book marketing, PR, book launches. That's my realm, right? Makes me happy. And what you just said and what you do for social media is what the 7 years we've been doing this, and the 13 that I've been working with books and stuff, I say all the time, which is sharing other people's works and what you enjoy reading, and not so much selling your book, because it comes across more genuine to your readers, and they're more likely to be like, you know what, I like you, because you don't just promote yourself. You read other people's stuff than just your own work. You don't just want my money to buy your book. You just love readers and reading, and you are a reader yourself, right? So you are just like the trophy child to me today, and I absolutely love it. But I would love to know, I always ask authors this question when I'm meeting with them, going to work with them or whatever, but how long does it generally take you to write your books and your short stories or your realm that you're in?
That's a really good question as well. And I think that's changed a little bit because the pandemic, my day job is that I'm a teacher, I'm an English teacher. And the pandemic really kind of exploded my life in a lot of ways, as it did for many people, of course. And so my workload massively uplifted during the pandemic, because suddenly it was you're working online, so you can do double the classes. And it's like, well,
Right?
no, actually, no. And so, whereas the first novella I wrote, The Balance, took about 4 months to draft, first of all. The
Okay.
novel that I wrote, like finished at the beginning of this year, I think was in the drafting process for about a year, with other short stories and things kind of going on at the same time, sort of concurrently. But yeah, so it really depends how it's going. The new one, I'm already like 16k in, and it's only about 5-6 weeks of writing. So yeah, it's going much better because I'm teaching less. Rah.
Yeah. Well, you're teaching less, so your day job has calmed down a little bit, but you've
Exactly.
gotten more writing and stuff under your belt. So you're just becoming more, familiar with your writing style, right? Is kind of how I say it. And I know everybody has a different writing style, right? Some are pantsers, some are, I don't know, disorganized. I can't think of the other word.
The discovery and the plotters. The plotters.
Thank
Are
you.
which are you? Because that's a great question. I love to know the writing process. Like, are you a plotter? Do you like have to hash out all the tales before you can jump into it, or are you kind of like, oh, I have this idea, I have all these, notes on this particular, tale that I want to play with, and you just jump in and see what happens?
I started off as a pantser, just completely just making it up as I went along. And I think after some time, you kind of run into enough dead ends where you're just like, I need to do something about this. This is such a waste of my time. So I started doing like really simple outline documents, just like giving myself milestones I want to hit, at some stage of the book. And then how I get from milestone A to B is kind of like, whatever, let's just see what happens. And that was kind of quite constructive. The new one I'm writing at the moment, the one about the fairies in France who eat people's souls, that has got 2 point of view characters. So because of that kind of going back and forth between this boy and this French policewoman, I ended up writing probably the most detailed outline document that I've written so far. But I'm on chapter 10 at the moment of about 20 something, 23, 24, and already one of those chapters has been just like ripped up and thrown in the trash because the characters decided to do something else instead.
I hate that when your characters refuse to go along with your own plans. As they become more and more developed, they start doing what they want instead of what you want them to.
And people think we are crazy when we say this, but it is completely true, isn't it? Like, they'll just like go, "What are you doing? Why did you do that, you idiots?"
I was asked the other day if how did I deal with the loneliness when I wrote, and my response was, "You're not lonely. It's a crowded, chaotic world, and I go into this chaotic world with all these people, and 5 hours later, I wake up, or I step out of this world. There's no loneliness."
And you're trying to shepherd those people as well. I mean, that's even worse.
And they were shocked. But, writing is not lonely. Writing is chaotic and full of people. That's your own characters.
And they are your companions. They are your companions. And it's kind of a shock. I don't know if you find this, Kev, but it's kind of a shock after you've been really in the zone and you're in your world, and then you come out of it and you're like back in the real world and you're like, oh man, I wish I could just, live over there, although it might not be the safest place to actually live,
And also there's that thing as well, like when you kind of kill someone off and you're like, oh God, feel terrible. And you're just like mourning this person that has never existed for like a couple of hours.
That's better, Kev, than when you kill someone off and you feel good about it.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you kill off characters and you're like, you feel good about it because they needed to die, I mean, I hate to admit that, but there are some characters who just sort of need to die.
Only in fiction. Only in fiction. Let's clarify.
I was going to say, we are not contemplating any of that in real life. Do not ban it, okay? I promise. What stays in my head, stays in my head, okay? I will not act on it.
Absolutely.
I promise. 100%. But, oh my gosh, we have talked about the World Cup, soccer, and had an Amy Dunn segment, which is new. So we always throw new stuff in there. But it has been such a fun conversation. Kev, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do closing comments, questions, concerns, statements, whatever. Russell, you go first.
I'm still crowded in talking about our characters in our head when we're writing. I got to tell you, when it was a table full of people. When I said there's no loneliness in writing, they were shocked. People were shocked about that. Anyway, thank you, Kev, for today. And I'm envious. I love Portugal. I've traveled through it. It's one of the most wonderful places with some of the most beautiful people I've ever been at. And I mean
If
beautiful.
you come
They're
back, please
good,
let me know.
sweet people. I will.
Fern, what about you?
Me, I'm just like loving this conversation, and especially because I feel like, the comment about being lonely, not only are we not lonely because we live in a world populated with beings that are very real to us, but as a community of writers, we have the people that connect with us, the people that we share our writing with, our developmental editor people who, we love but also hate at the same time. We have this really amazing community that is unique because, like you were saying, Kev, you can lift each other up. You're
Yeah.
not really in competition. You're really working together to build an audience for all of our books. And so I really feel like this is a really blessed profession in that regard. So, and I'm so happy to connect with you. I wish England the best. Nevertheless, I am rooting for the United States. We are going to have to beat England's butt. I'm just saying. Okay.
I love it.
But yeah,
I
guys,
love
thank you so much for inviting me on to talk to you all. It's been an absolute pleasure. I will keep rooting for England. I'm sorry. My second choice is Argentina because I just think they've got a really nice squad. But yeah, and what you were saying about like the loneliness as well. I think there's that thing about characters. There's also the thing about the community, like you were saying, Fern. But I think there's also like within the community, there's also like the love of character as well. Because when you're a reader, not just a writer, but a reader as well, there are these characters from like classic or even niche kind of books that we've read, and you can talk to somebody about this person, and you can feel like real love, real hate, real admiration for these people that are all just living in our minds, which is something, like you say, really quite a blessed kind of place to be. I love that. So yeah, but thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it has been so much fun. We love doing this because we love hearing from authors, learning about their works because there are so many, and I am a huge advocate that we wouldn't have, great entertainment if it wasn't for authors. Indie, small press, traditional, all realms, right? We love them all. So this has been so much fun, and getting to know you and just you behind the writer and how you got started and inspiration is what we thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy. But you guys, this has been so much fun. We have Author Talk Shorts coming up, highlighting the 12 days of page turner authors. That is a mouthful of authors that are going to be featured that start 1 week from Thursday, you guys. But until then, everybody, we hope you all have a great Monday, a great week, and we'll catch you all next week. Bye, everybody.